This way, we're ready to cruise on lesson 3, the development of Judaism as a religion. Yesterday, we talked about the kings. We went from we went from King Saul, the first one, not so great, to King David, to King Solomon, to then splitting up the kingdom, and those two kingdoms getting destroyed. So we had 10 tribes in the north known as Israel. They get destroyed by the Assyrians. 2 tribes in the south, Judah. They get taken captive of Babylon, but were the 10 tribes in the north who were conquered by the Assyrians. We never hear from them again in history because they got scattered. 70 years after going into the Babylonian captivity, they're brought back out of the Babylonian captivity. They're set free. And so Judah remains and develops into the religion that we know today. So we're talking about the development, and then we're talking about how does religion shape society, the importance of religion in our lives. And so it's a good time for us to talk about this, guys, as far as in America, we believe in the freedom of religion. We love that freedom. You're allowed to worship whoever and whatever you want. And where we appreciate that freedom, guys, there's a lot of countries in this world that have what's called state-run religions. In other words, the government says, you will be this religion. Now, as Americans, we're like, oh, that takes away their freedom. Why do countries do that? Because if every person in that country follows the same religion, then they all should have the same morals, and it makes running a society good. You and I should be obeying rules in our country, not because our government says so, but because our God says so. Or maybe I should say, we also obey rules because our government says so. We first obey them because our God says so. But if I don't believe in a God, then there's no motivation to do that, guys. Governments have a hard time motivating you to obey rules. If we were motivated by a government, guys, we wouldn't have crime, would we? If I had enough fear of a speeding ticket, I would never speed. If I had enough fear of prison, I would never get arrested for stealing and go to jail. So we need a bigger motivator. That's society. Religion served as a basis for all daily activities for the ancient Israelites. Many of their religious beliefs and practices continue today. We need to make sure that, guys, religion continues for us today so we keep doing what we're supposed to be doing. All right, let's get rolling through it. The families of Judeans who were exiled to Babylon spent 70 years away from Judah. During their exile, they became known as the Jews. So we call their religion Judaism. Number one. Well, in Babylon, the Jews no longer had a temple in which to worship God. It is believed that small groups of Jews began to meet at synagogues. Number 2. Synagogue is a Jewish house of worship. Okay, so guys, a lot of different religions have different names. Jews call it a synagogue. We call it a church. Catholics go to Mass. There's just different names for it. They're all the same thing. They worshipped on the Sabbath. According to tradition, the Sabbath lasts from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. So guys, the Sabbath is really Saturday. Their day ends when the sun goes down. So if the sun goes down at 6 p.m., it goes from 6 p.m. Friday night to 6 p.m. Saturday night. During this weekly day of worship and rest, the Jews prayed, talked about their religion and history. Jews still observe the Sabbath day today. Now, a lot of us think the Sabbath day got moved to Sunday, guys. Jesus got away with the Sabbath rules. He is the Lord of the Sabbath. He says, you don't need to worship me on just one day. I want you to worship me all the time. I don't need to not work. In the Old Testament, they weren't allowed to work, guys. They literally just rested. There's a genius to that, but God's original plan, work 6 days, rest the 7th day. What has man done? Work 5 days, rest 2 days, right? So we have the work week and the weekend. Not quite biblical, but whatever. Well, some Jews accepted Babylon as their permanent home. Others hoped to return to Judah someday. This hope was achieved when a group of people called the Persians swept across southwest Asia. The Persians defeated the Chaldeans, or the Babylonians, and took over Babylon. In 538 BC, the Persian king, who was Cyrus II at this time, let the Jews return to Judah. Okay, so you had number 3 in your notes. The Persians defeated them, guys. If you know your Bible history, we had King Nebuchadnezzar, and then we think it's 2 generations. We had Belshazzar. He was the one that was having a party one night and pulled out the gold cups from the temple in Jerusalem and said, look how powerful I am. And all of a sudden a hand appeared and wrote 4 words on the wall, and they didn't know what it meant. And so they called in Daniel, and Daniel pretty much said, the Medes and the Persians are going to get you. And that night, Belshazzar was killed, and Cyrus II came in. Some Jews stayed in Babylon, but many returned to Judah. They rebuilt Jerusalem and constructed a new temple to replace the one destroyed by the Chaldeans. This new place of worship became known as the Second Temple. They cried over it, guys, because it was not beautiful by any means. Meanwhile, the Persians chose officials to rule the country and collect taxes from the people. They did not allow the Jews to have their own government or king. The Jews depended on religious leaders, the temple priests and scribes, to guide their society. Okay, so you have number 4 in your notes with these religious leaders. So it sounds so great. Persians, hey, you guys, you're welcome. You can go free. Not really, right? So you're still underneath us, but we're going to get you out of Babylon, go back to your home territory, and we'll rule you from there. Many scribes were religious scholars. These scribes had a deep understanding of the Jewish faith. Scribes often lectured in the synagogues and taught in the schools. Led by a scribe named Ezra, the Jews wrote the 5 books of the Torah on pieces of parchments. They sewed the pieces together to make long scrolls. The Torah and writings that were added later make up the Hebrew Bible. So guys, you got number 5 in your notes. Ezra, like Nehemiah and Ezra from the Bible, the famous guy that came out of captivity and kept the writings, or else we'd have had him lost to history. Isn't it easier to follow rules when they're clearly explained? That is what the Hebrew Bible provided for the ancient Jews. 3 parts, the Torah, the prophets, and the writings make up the Hebrew Bible. It contains a series of 24 books written and collected over many centuries. The Hebrew Bible presents the laws and rules of the Israelites. It also reflects the culture of the people. Jewish history, art, literature, poetry, and proverbs are also part of the Hebrew Bible. Okay, guys, you got number 1, number 6 in your notes. The 3 parts of Torah would be the first 5 books of the Bible. The prophets, you can think of those that you name, like Amos, Isaiah, Jeremiah. And then the writings would be the rest of the books of the Old Testament. Remember, the Hebrew Bible is only Old Testament, guys. The Jews don't believe Jesus is the Savior. So everything in the New Testament they reject because it talks about Jesus. All right, we're going to get that explained to us a little bit more now. Genesis, the first book of the Torah, presents the Israelites' view of human beginnings. Number 7 in your notes. It tells how God created the earth in 6 days, rested on the 7th. Genesis also describes how God punished the world for wicked behavior. In the book, God warns a man named Noah that a flood is coming and commands him to build an ark, or a large boat. As the rains poured and the flood waters rose, Noah, his family, and 2 of every animal on the earth boarded the ark. The earth flooded and many perished. Only those in the ark escaped drowning. After the rain stopped, God placed a rainbow in the sky as a sign that the world would never again be destroyed by a flood. So you get the story of the flood, guys, also true record for us, I think, in Genesis chapter 9. It takes like 6, 7, 8, 9 to get through the flood story. The only thing I would add here is we always think he takes 2 of every animal on the ark. He takes 7 of some animals. Those is he's going to start offering as sacrifices, what we call clean animals for the Jews. He takes 7 of those on the ark, but 2 of all the other ones. Genesis also explains why the people of the world speak many different languages. It tells how the citizens of the city of Babel tried to build a tower to reach heaven. That's misleading, guys. It says we're going to build a tower to the heavens, meaning we're just going to build a tower into the sky. It's literally the first attempt at building a skyscraper, okay? So don't think like they're going to build a tower and we're just going to walk up that tower and walk right into heaven and say, hey, God, how you doing today? And then walk down the tower and go about my day. So just be careful with that, guys. God disapproved and made the people speak in different languages. Number 8 in your notes, the people could not communicate with one another. As a result, they could not work together to complete the tower. God then scattered the people across the earth. Okay, so he makes them speak in different languages, and then just like this, it says God scattered the people across the earth. We don't know if that was physical. In other words, I can't talk to you anymore. You're speaking a different language. I don't trust you. I think you're making fun of me behind my back, so I just move away from you. Or we don't know if God just literally disappeared them and scattered them that way. All of a sudden, boom, people popped up all around the world. It is one way people think, hey, maybe this is how people got all over the world. In other words, we look at coming out of the flood, Noah crashes, the animals get off the ark, and we say, how did the people, after they got off the boat, make it to Australia, an island in the middle of the ocean? How did people get to North America? And we have the philosophies of them walking over there on frozen land, but one possibility is, guys, God literally just disappeared them and appeared them. And so all of a sudden there's people on all the different continents. No idea. Later parts of the Hebrew Bible describe Jewish hopes for the future. Number 9 in your notes. The book of Isaiah describes what the Jews believe to be God's plan for a peaceful world. It says that the nations will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning forks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Wouldn't that be awesome if that was true? In the course of history, and our world being around what we believe is about 6,000 to 7,000 years, guys, there's less than a couple hundred years where there hasn't been war going on somewhere. So we're not doing a very good job of living in peace. The book of Daniel explains that the Jews also believed that evil and suffering would eventually be replaced by goodness. Daniel was a trusted advisor to a Babylonian king. As a Jew, however, he refused to worship Babylonian gods. For punishment, the Chaldeans threw Daniel into a lion's den. God, however, protected Daniel from the wild beasts. The story of Daniel reminds Jews that God will rescue them. Okay, number 10 in your notes. Christians and Muslims share with the Jews the hope of a better world in which good triumphs over evil. A hope that we got to believe, guys. It might not happen on this lifetime, but it'll definitely happen in the next lifetime. Okay, Daniel was definitely thrown in the lion's den. By the time Daniel was thrown in the lion's den, guys, Babylon was not there. Babylon had been conquered by Cyrus II, okay? Cyrus is the one that tossed them in there, but irrelevant. I should have went and showed you the picture of Daniel in the lion's den. I don't know how it works. It just says an angel shut their mouth, so I don't know if they were, nudging him with their mouth closed or what, but always an interesting story. Let's talk about Jewish life. The Torah provides laws for daily living. These laws shaped the family life of the early Jews. The laws gave instructions about what foods to eat, what clothes to wear. They also required Jews to help the poor, deal honestly with their neighbors, and apply laws fairly. Jewish law emphasized individual worth and responsibility as well as self-discipline. It also reminded Jews of their loyalty to God. What a great sentence. It's number 11 in your notes, guys, but hey, number 1, we have these things, worth and responsibility, and I want to stress that to us, guys. In God's eyes, we're all worth something, and so is everybody else. And so you got to be able to look at yourself and say, I'm worthy, I'm responsible, and I am self-disciplined as I show my loyalty to God by doing those things. He has given you gifts. He expects you to use those gifts to be a blessing to others. The ancient Israelites stressed the importance of family life. The Torah identifies specific roles for the father and the mother of the house. If a father died, his sons would take his place to lead the family. That's number 12 in your notes. It's what we call patriarchal, running through the males, guys, and what was expected of them and how important that was in biblical times. And as we understand the Bible, guys, in this belief system, you'll understand why Jesus felt so bad for the widow of Nain, because she lost her husband and lost her son. So now literally there's no one to provide and lead them because women weren't supposed to. The men were supposed to do that. The Jewish family also stressed education, especially for young men. When sons grew old enough, fathers taught them to worship God and to learn a trade. That started at the age of 12. Remember, Jesus went to the temple when he was 12. Later, under the guidance of religious teachers, boys learned to read the Torah. Everything the students learned, from the alphabet to Jewish history, they learned from the Torah. Because reading the Torah was essential to Jewish life, religious teachers became important community leaders. Okay, number 13 in your notes, guys. But what they're getting at here is it's time to teach the young children how to read. What are we going to use as our book? The Bible, their Torah. I didn't get my reading book out. I didn't get a novel like we do in school today. Everything was done out of the Bible for them. Daughters who were educated at home by their mothers learned to be wives, mothers, and housekeepers. This included learning Jewish laws about food and Sabbath and holidays. They also learned about the women of ancient Israel. 2 of these women were Ruth and her mother-in-law Naomi. Okay, you got number 14 in your notes, learning how to be everything. According to the Hebrew Bible, Naomi's husband and her 2 sons died. That would be bad, wouldn't it? Nobody to take care of them. One of the sons who was married to Ruth. Ruth, who was not a Jew herself, made a difficult decision. To help Naomi, Ruth chose to leave her Moabite homeland. She moved to Bethlehem to be with Naomi. Naomi had urged Ruth to stay with her own people, but Ruth responded, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." The story of Ruth is so awesome, guys. Her faith. What she really said is, I'm going to leave my home country. I'm going to leave my own people. I'm going to leave everything I know. Why? Because I want your God to be my God. She had such a strong faith that she literally signed up for a miserable life. She had no husband, guys. She was going to take care of her mother-in-law. It was going to be sad. That's what Naomi says. Naomi says, my life is bitter. She renamed herself Bitter. And of course, it's going to work out, guys. And Ruth is going to become into the promised line of the Savior. Ruth is like the great great grandmother of King David. Ruth's courage and devotion to her family provide an example for Jewish girls to follow. Number 15 in your notes. Okay, stories of brave leaders like Daniel have inspired Jews to maintain their faith during the times of trial and trouble. Brainstorm a list of present-day individuals or groups who inspire others with their bravery in the face of great difficulty or danger. So guys, a lot of you, if you're thinking about these things, I always think of some of our inspirational speakers that are famous today. If you know me, you know I like Inky Johnson. Inky Johnson got his arm paralyzed playing football, and he literally was going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL, multimillionaire, and he just talks about now this was paralyzed arm is so much better for me because this is what God had to do to save me and allow me to talk to other people and save them. Obviously, he has to overcome and live without an arm that works. Eric Thomas, another famous one, took him 12 years to graduate college, right? Dropped out, rough life, homeless for a while. Now he's like the richest, most powerful motivational speaker out there, overcoming a lot of things. What does that take? It takes bravery. He could have easily used all the excuses that society said he could use to do that. You think about in the past, your Martin Luther King Jr.'s. Talk about inspirational, right? What did he have to overcome? Man, he had to stand up to a lot of garbage with racism, and yet with his bravery, he did it peacefully, right? He won them over. Martin Luther King Jr. got his belief from Gandhi in India, who did the same thing, peaceful protests. Guys, the list goes on and on of brave leaders who maintain awesome faith in what they believed in. We'll finish it up. Their dietary laws. I should scroll this thing up so you can see the rest of them. Jewish law tells Jews what they can eat. Ancient Jews could eat meat of only certain animals. For example, they could eat beef and lamb, but not pork. Laws about food are known as kashrut, okay? That one is number 16 in your notes, which means that which is proper. By following laws related to foods, Jews believe that they were showing their obedience to God. Today, food that is prepared according to these laws is called to be kosher, guys. So that's that symbol that you will see on food labels to indicate that it is made the right way. Many items you see in a grocery store may have symbols of kosher on the label. Animal used for kosher meat must be killed in a certain way. The meat must be inspected, salted, and soaked in water. Foods that are not kosher are considered to be unclean. So this was tossed out a lot in the Bible, guys, clean and unclean. God has gotten away with that in the New Testament. He taught that to Peter. But the Jews obviously don't believe in the New Testament, so they still follow those kosher meals. Dietary laws prohibit Jews from eating meat and dairy products together. Jews also cannot eat shellfish, such as crab or shrimp. So there's certain animals that are clean and unclean, so Jews will not eat certain meals. Specific foods, did I give you kosher for number 17 down here? Specific foods with religious significance are eaten during some meals. For example, the Seder is the special meal eaten during the festival of Passover. Okay, what's the Passover? It's a holiday that celebrates the exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt. Remember when God passed over the houses that had blood on the doors. What's the meal called? The meal is called the Seder. Foods such as lamb, hard-boiled eggs, vinegar, salt water, herbs, and flat bread, called matzah, are served at the Seder. That's what that looks like, guys, that they eat. During the meal, the youngest child at the table asks a series of questions, number 18 in your notes, about the food and the meaning of the Passover. The adults and the older children at the table recite the answer to the question together. For example, they tell how the bitter herbs reflect their bitter experience of Jews living in exile. The tradition of eating special foods at the Passover and reflecting on history is sacred to the Jewish people. So they take this very serious, guys. And you eat some of this, and you're like, ooh, this tastes awful. Yeah, remember, Egypt was awful. And God delivered you from there. Ooh, I still sin. That's awful. That's bitter. So there was a meaning behind everything, guys, and they reflect on that, on what God did for them as they work their way through the Passover meal, focusing on religion. It's a good reminder for us, guys. You think about how many holidays we have where we're supposed to focus on the right things. Christmas is a great example. I'm supposed to focus on God's love, His gift to me in Jesus Christ. And what do we think about Christmas now? What gifts can I get, right? Who's giving me presents now? And I instantly think worldly instead of focusing on spiritual. Easter. Yay, I get some Easter candy. What? Jesus rose from the dead. I get heaven. Make sure we keep our focus where our focus needs to be. Awesome. You got through lesson 3 as we continue the Old Testament study of God's Jewish people. Blessings on your assignment.